Hello and welcome back to the Tree of Life podcast. My name is Jacob Totson and this is Kubi May. And this is episode 3. We're 3 episodes in. And sadly, this is the last one that we'll be recording together. So enjoy the beautiful background that we have for you today. This is definitely something I think is unique, and I kind of enjoy it, being able to be outside and talk about this kind of stuff. So yeah. But today, we're going to be talking about May. And May is Beltane time.
Oh, it's especially in Glastonbury, and it's such a shame that you're not going to be here for it. It's the time to come to Glastonbury, and we normally have about 3,000 people descending on the town for the occasion of Beltane.
Nearly double the population.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, I'd say. So that's a really incredible time in the town. There's a lot of really beautiful kind of rituals that have their roots firmly in pagan beliefs.
Yeah. So what would normally happen with the Beltane celebration here? Like, what happens here?
So there's normally a little bit of prep a couple of days before. We normally have the women gathering to dig the hole of the maypole, what will become the maypole, and they put petals around it and sing sacred songs into it. And then at the same time, and it always has to be the exact same time, the men fell the tree that's going to become the maypole. So that, I mean, the ritual magic already begins.
Yeah.
And,
now the men, are they dressed as green men?
They are for the actual day.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure about the tree felling because I've never been there.
You're always digging the hole.
Tried to sneak in with a beard and they wouldn't have me. No, it'll be beautiful. I'm hoping to join the women there this year. So it's going to be, that part's gorgeous. And of course, you might have noticed straight away, there's quite a lot of, metaphor, sexual metaphor in there, the digging of the hole for the women, and the tall phallic-shaped tree for the men. The clues are already there.
I like to think when I was in art school that like every single time they'd be like, well, this is clearly a penis. And I'm like, you just see sex and everything. But the more I learn about history, I'm more like, we do.
Yeah, it's all about it. It's all about it. It's the one thing that really unites people.
Well, and that's, I mean, one of the
Penises.
main things. I don't know. I don't have anything to say to that one. No
It's
comment.
the first time I've ever seen Jacob blushing.
I just had the men's circle last night, so I'm a little, oof.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, the celebrations of Beltane themselves, they start with a lot of really cool performances. We normally have the Bard of Glastonbury doing some poems and a few performances with the mayor doing a little talk. And then a procession begins with the men dressed as the Green Man or the Oak King. It's kind of a connection to the Oak King there. And they carry the felled tree up the high street, singing songs on the way. And they're joined by the women and everybody else, the whole town, up in a field further away where they erect the maypole.
You chose that word.
Spring is in the air.
Literally.
And they just do a lovely little, the classic dance of the ribbons, which is of course a fertility ritual. Some people even think it might even literally represent sperm traveling around the egg as well, or the Axis Mundi.
But they wouldn't know that in the past.
Or maybe they did somehow.
I mean, they didn't have microscopes unless they were like putting it on their eyeball and like, looking at it that way.
But then I suppose, you hear these things even with ancient Egyptians where they seem to know a lot about astronomy that they couldn't have known without telescopes. It's very fascinating, these ancient cultures. They seem to have been aware of things without having the tools.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing that's interesting. Beltane is a fertility rite. That's
Yeah.
what it's about, because it's also about the fields. It's about the animals.
Yeah.
Because it's also when animals start mating to produce for the coming year, and this is when we start sowing the fields. And it's also when people feel alive again.
Yeah.
It's the time you start actually expressing yourself because you've been trapped in. I mean, shoot, I've been in Glastonbury for all of April,
Yeah.
and most of April has been cloudy and windy and rainy.
No, it's been dreadful.
This weather is not England. This is like sometimes England.
Very rare day.
And it'll probably rain still today.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy weather. But yeah, it's so true. It's like, it doesn't even have to be just about creativity in the kind of known fertility way. It can even be the creativity of what you're birthing into the world with projects. And, it's a time
What
where
you're
we
sowing
come
the
alive.
seeds of.
Yeah, what you're sowing the seeds of. Like that. That's
I'll
a
wink
good
to the
one.
camera. I think it was one of those crappy winks, though. I was like,
Oh gosh, but I mean, it's beautiful. The kind of story of, you know, the idea of the Green Man and the May Queen, which is actually really connected more with the Oak King, and the May Queen is the hawthorn. Women traditionally wear the garland of hawthorn around their heads, and if you look to the Irish Ogham, the hawthorn and the oak trees are next to each other. They're like a married couple, and the rites of the hawthorn are. It kind of speaks almost directly to how the tree looks as well, with the thorns and the blossom. Like, there are certain challenges that a man has to go through to prove himself worthy of the woman, and that's part of the May Day dance-off. It's kind of sort of displaying that. So quite nice, because it sort of gives women really good sort of set of rules for creating good boundaries, healthy boundaries for themselves, and good standards. And get to be spoiled a little bit by the men, which is quite nice.
where's the point where the women spoil the men?
That's the Oak King. That's the next part of the honouring the Oak King. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's a real dance of the both, really. It's you know, seeing the Oak King in the man. It's like the divine masculine, and then honouring the femininity of the hawthorn and the May Queen. Yeah, really special. So really nice time out on the land. It's just full of frivolity. There's a lot of few beautiful ceremonies as well. Often people go up to the Tor for sunrise, and
Where do they do the ceremony here?
they do a few. They do one up on the Tor, and then they do a bit of what's it called? The dancing with the clicking and the clacking of the sticks.
Is this like hot cross buns again?
Oh my God, I've gone completely blank.
Clickety clackety, I don't know.
Nope, it's gone.
It's gone. Well, while she's still thinking
Morris
about
dances.
Okay.
Morris dances. Sorry.
I was going to use that as our ad break. Today is sponsored by Huel.
Yeah, Morris dancing. So that happens up on the Tor. And then in Chalice Wells, which is the beautiful garden that we've got here with the red springs.
It's a bit posh.
Oh, it's very beautiful though. The flowers there at the moment are so beautiful. They often do a very big bonfire on Chalice Hill, and they do the traditional leaping of the fire, leaping of the Beltane fires, which is to promote fertility and to sort of have your wishes fulfilled around that.
Yeah.
Leaping into the next chapter together.
Yeah, and regardless, you know, to anyone listening to this of any spiritual path, I mean, Beltane is only one of many fire festivals. Typically held around this year. I mean, you have the May Day celebrations, which I don't actually know that much about, but I know it's heavily Catholic in origin. But the same thing, it's still a big bonfire. Like, that's typically what happens. And so I don't know, I don't have the information with me right now to say, oh, this is probably pagan in origin. What we can say is that most European pagan countries have some kind of fire celebration around summertime.
People love fire.
Yeah, fire's nice.
Who doesn't love gathering around a big old fire?
Well, and maybe that's because, like, at night, it's still pretty cold here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still like, you know, like 4 degrees Celsius, like, you know, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And so, yeah, you're still a bit cold at night, so you need that big bonfire. Like, you're excited, the sun's finally out, but you need the sun a little bit longer, so you have a big bonfire at night.
Sensible. Like that.
Yeah.
Pagans are always practical.
I think that a lot of times we look at these ancient traditions and rites, and we think of these big, sophisticated reasons of why they did it. And sometimes I'm thinking, no, it's because they were cold.
Never mind the sacred fire.
Yeah, because
just freezing.
And what's the other thing with Beltane? It's like the leading between two fires, right?
Yeah, with the cattle.
The cattle, and part of that reason is because of the smoke gets rid of the bugs. And so the bugs from the barn, they lead them back out into the pastures without the bugs on them because they went through the smoke and stuff. Yeah,
there's some interesting kind of practical things that have been sort of woven in over the years, and May Day and Beltane are kind of morphed in their traditions, really.
Because the May Queen is part of May Day.
Yeah. But you can trace it back to the sort of the hawthorn. Rights, I think that's for me. That's where the connection is.
Yeah.
Especially because there's clues like the hawthorn garland. And you go, oh, interesting. Yeah, good choice of a tree.
Yeah. And then there's also with the Green Man. You know, I was doing my research for the Gods of Spring. The Green Man's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because he goes back very far.
Yeah.
But we don't really have any written source material until like the 1800s.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite modern in terms of written material.
Yeah.
But they believe it might even be like a reformed version of Cernunnos, even like the kind of the wild, the masculine, the kind of the essence of nature.
The oldest and furthest Green Man ever found is in Iran.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was
That's
like from like the
incredible.
3rd century BC or something like that.
God, that is really old then, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so it's clearly, that definitely is like Indo-European migration kind of stuff,
Yeah.
starting the Danube River and working its way up. And,
Yeah.
and so, yeah. And I think as it traveled, as the Green Man traveled, he took on all these aspects of these other local wild deities until it's
Yeah.
found its way here. And
Put
we're
some
still doing it.
horns on his head. And
Yeah,
some...
it is a bit interesting. You see some people do the horns, some people don't with the
Yeah.
Green Man interpretations. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's really fantastic. Well, you're going to be, of course, at the Hill of Tara for
The
Beltane.
Hill of Ishnaq, they're different.
Oh, are they?
I didn't know this, but yeah, they are actually different. The Hill of Ishnaq and the Hill of Tara are 2 different places.
Okay.
Yeah, which you'll learn more about that in my upcoming videos talking about Ireland. So those are coming up pretty soon because I leave Glastonbury on Monday. And then I kind of start this mad road trip through Ireland, and I'm going to be recording 10 videos
Oh my gosh.
in 13 days.
Sounds intense.
And one of them is going to be at Ishnaq, which is
great.
their biggest Beltane celebration. Which
Why do they hold it at Ishnaq?
I'll have to look it up. Again, I haven't
Yeah.
quite gotten to that part of my research yet. But far as I understand, the Hill of Ishnaq and the Hill of Tara are both sacred hills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the reason Ishnaq is, but I know Tara is like supposedly, I think, where the Celtic gods, like the Irish gods, came.
Yes.
Like, to the Day of Danann.
Yeah, there's the story of the Tuatha De Danann landing on the Hill of Tara,
Yeah.
with their ship, burning their ships as if to say, we're staying, folks, this is it. And then establishing the golden age of Ireland from there.
Yeah.
So that was the 1st of May, and that's an interesting, another connection with the Beltane thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like almost like the fertilizing the land with that whole era, that whole golden age.
So I think a good conversation to have as well is advice you would have for people who aren't necessarily near a Beltane celebration. Like, how would you recommend someone celebrating Beltane who lives in, I always love using Kansas as an example because it's just a miserable place full of corn and wheat.
Sorry if you're in Kansas.
Yeah, I am actually really sorry if you're in Kansas. There's nothing there. No, Nebraska's worse. Nebraska's worse. It's just like Kansas without Kansas City.
Right.
Yeah, and Kansas City at least has like barbecue.
Okay.
Yeah, but Nebraska, I've talked to
Nothing.
people from Nebraska, and they're like, there's a hill.
Oh. Well, we can start with that.
Yeah, go to the hill.
Go to the hill.
You're
Make-
one hill in Nebraska.
I always think a lovely way to celebrate Beltane is just to get people gathered around a fire, whether it's in your back garden, if you're by yourself, you can still have a lovely little fire, or even to sit around a candle and to really think about how you can meet the inner masculine and the inner feminine within yourself. The idea that everybody has an inner masculine and an inner feminine, and kind of looking at how you can marry the two together or create more of a relationship with that. So yeah, it's a beautiful time to buy yourself flowers or to kind of look at your own boundaries and think, where do I need to kind of become more like the Oak King as well? And to celebrate, the femininity and the love of the land and just the beautiful nature that's around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we said in a previous episode, dance more.
To dance more.
Everyone dances, masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
Do it.
Absolutely. And to celebrate, you could also put, you could leave a little cup of honey mead out for the gods because they love honey mead, as do most people. And to decorate the house with holy hawthorns and
Roy, I've enjoyed having you
wild.
here.
Sweet
I was tired of having my legs completely closed like that.
Oh. But yeah, you can decorate the house with beautiful branches, hawthorn leaves, hawthorn branches, the blossom. Bring a bit of nature indoors.
Yeah,
what I would do.
I think that's a big thing, and I talked about this in my spring video as well. It's just go outside. I mean, definitely what I've learned here in Glastonbury in my 30 days is the time that the sun is actually out, enjoy it.
Yeah.
And from where I'm from, like in Kentucky, it's already starting to get hot. Like I've looked at the forecast, and there's already days that are going up in the 80s and 90s Fahrenheit.
Send it over here, please.
No, keep it over there. And so, like the whispers of summer in certain places of the world are already there. This is what you have to look forward to in the summer. So enjoy these very. Everyone says spring doesn't last long enough, fall doesn't last, autumn doesn't last long enough.
Yeah.
And it's because we don't enjoy it long enough. You don't take the
so
time to actually
true.
go out and sit with it.
Yeah.
Before you know it, it's like, oh, there it goes. Like I remember I talked to people last autumn in the States, and like I was out nearly every weekend with the leaves.
Yeah.
And they lasted. I think I did the math. It lasted 11 weeks of solid leaf, like the orange
really?
leaf. And then I talked to people, and they're like, oh, it just didn't last long enough. Never got out. I'm like, it lasted 3 months. You just didn't
Where
go.
were you, folks?
Yeah, you didn't do anything. You
missed the party.
Stop blaming the weather and the trees for your inability to go outside.
Oh, it's hard, isn't it? I suppose that's it. When it's cold, we've become a little bit wimpish, haven't we, with the outdoors? I think that's why paganism is so wonderful, though. It really invites that connection to get back out in nature.
I mean, shoot, we walked. To be fair, we're not that far from Kubi's house. We're very close, and we walked, 200 feet, about 80 yards. And we talked to so many people that are just outside sunbathing, reading a book. Yeah. Someone walked by, they're like, "Oh, I was just sleeping in the grass,"
Yeah.
Like, dude, the hippies of Glastonbury have definitely taught me, taking life a little bit slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they might take it a little too slowly here sometimes. And you can't live like that forever, but it is such a wonderful lesson to learn. When's the last time you sat in the grass and just took a nap?
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I remember that when I originally moved from more of a city into the countryside here, and I remember being like, God, what do people do for fun here? And I remember the adjustment of the nervous system regulating itself with the pace of life here. Very, very slow kind of way of being, and soon realizing, oh, it's just beautiful, isn't it? It's just so nice. And yeah, it's about the little things, gathering in small groups, connecting with the land, reading. It's very cyclical here. We're very at one with the seasons.
Yeah, and everyone is kind of in similar moods.
Yeah.
Yeah, like since this town is so small, I feel like everyone syncs up really well.
Yeah.
Like there's days that I'm like, I'm feeling a bit sleepy. And I go outside, I'm like, oh, everyone's feeling a bit sleepy today. There won't be as many people out and about, they'll be inside. I don't see people talking to each other. I'm like, the vibe is sleepy today.
Yeah. And then we come out the eclipse portal and everyone's like, oh my God, did you survive the eclipse?
Everyone
and
here
everyone's
the
on
eclipse
it.
was going mad. I'm like, it's not even happening here. It's happening on the other side of the damn planet. And everyone's like, the eclipse! But it's good fun. It's good fun.
How have you found your time here? Because you've had almost like a solid month in Glastonbury.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've had a few crazy experiences that I've taken you to whilst you've been here.
Yeah, so again, horrible shameless plugs all day, but the video I'm working on here is how to live a more spiritual life. And the way I've been filming this is I basically gave myself parameters for my 30 days here, because I knew Glastonbury was a very isolated and a very spiritual place, and so I could definitely see it as like a pilgrimage. Oh, we got Lady Two Dogs over here.
Oh yeah, double trouble at all times. Eh?
Huh. Very interesting setup. And Zora was perfectly okay with this.
Yeah. It's just 14 years of
this
tolerating
this. This is why you need to watch the podcast. I'm very impressed, actually.
Sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah, so like 30 days, basically every morning doing yoga, trying to eat a really healthy way, meditating often, going to the White Springs as much as possible. And then the big one was saying yes to everything. Now, this doesn't mean if someone comes up and says, hey, man, you want to do some meth? It doesn't mean I'm going to do that. I'm not going full yes man in this, but I did, any spiritual experience that was offered to me, for the most part, I said yes to. There was a couple times that I was like 3 things in a row, and someone, I think it was the first kirtan we were going to go to, and I was just like, I've done like 3 things today. I am so tired. And so, yeah, I mean, I've really been embracing Glastonbury for what it is, really taking it by the horns and seeing where it took me, and it's been a magical ride. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about the town. I came here just knowing Kubi, really. And now I have like a group of guy friends that, we're all part of this like men's circle, and I mean, there's probably like 5 or 6 of us that are like really close. And it happened in 2 weeks ago, and it's just been building and building. And every day it seems like there's new people coming into town looking for a spiritual experience, looking for guidance, and you run into them because everyone goes to the same things here. There's 7 cafes in this town, like 5 pubs in the White Springs and the tour, and there's just not a lot here. And so you run into people so naturally. Yeah. I was getting pizza one night, after like meeting a group of people, we went to go get pizza. And then I met some people from Canada, and they were just...
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like living van life throughout Europe, and they just ended up here. And I was like, oh yeah, here's, what can you tell people to do here? It's like, have you done the White Springs? Have you done the tour? Yeah. Oh, have you done Chalice Wells? But they hadn't heard of the White Springs. I'm like, I'll go to it. And then sure enough, the next day, see them at the White Springs,
What a surprise.
Yeah. I think... what I'll shut up in this section, and you can ask questions if you want, is... I think the best experience to describe my time here in Glastonbury is there was one day I was doing absolutely no phones, which I think is very good. no phones is great.
Yeah.
And I was just wandering, I was like, I'm going to go to the tour for a bit. And I just walked up the tour, sat there, looked over the fields. And all of a sudden, our mutual friend Loki comes up to me and he's just like, hey, we're doing a meditation. You want to come? I'm like, all right, yeah. And all of a sudden, I started doing this meditation with him and a woman, Michelle, and Rob. Rob was from the Netherlands. Michelle lives here. And then after the meditation, they were like, let's go get dinner. And we all ended up in a car, and then we're going to the next town over to get Thai food. And it was like, let's go to the pub.
Yeah.
We're all to the pub. The whole time the conversation was spiritual in nature, and we all bonded. Two of these people I didn't know. And then, we had a great time, went our separate ways. Next morning, sitting there having my coffee. Oh, there's Rob. It's so crazy how quickly you can become friends with people here, and then you just keep building that relationship. And I think that's been the most beautiful thing.
It's so good. You've really rooted here. It's almost. Have you found it almost like I would compare it to the Shire in what's it called in the Hobbit?
Yeah, the Shire with more tie-dye.
Yeah.
And hemp.
A bit more hemp. Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe.
Well, Somerset in general, I think, is very shirey.
Yeah.
It's very green. I mean, as you can see if you're watching the video, it's very green here
Yeah.
because it rains all the damn time. So it's very green. Lots of really subtle rolling hills. People very rarely wear shoes.
Who needs shoes?
Yeah. So
Cast them to the wind.
yeah, I can't. I heard in the summertime it's quite common to see people only in a fig leaf.
Yeah, especially in the White Spring.
Yeah.
I mean, we had that great evening, didn't we? Was it a couple of weeks ago? Maybe it was just last week.
I've had so many experiences.
Where it was a shamanic trance dance.
Oh yeah, that was like a
was
lifetime
great
ago.
fun. That was your idea. You spotted that one.
Yeah.
And that was great fun. They blindfolded each person that was there for the dance and did a little breath of fire breathing, and then went into dancing in our own space. And it's quite a fascinating experience, isn't it? Because you kind of you almost meet different parts of yourself.
Yeah.
I think in the psyche.
Did you
It's
just feel like,
really-
because obviously you've done like shamanic journeying. How did you find the dancing versus like drum journey?
Oh, do you know what? I was thinking the whole time, I'd love to combine both because both have they're really powerful in different ways. The drumming, I feel, kind of really anchors a trance-like state, and it kind of travels down in a spiral, whereas this felt more kind of circular, like a circular and up. So I'd love to bring both together.
Something
see
I
what
was thinking of,
happens.
like the one thing I didn't expect when I took my blindfold off, I was in a completely different area of the room.
You took it off?
No, at the end.
Totally cheated.
At the end.
Oh, at the end. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, you were like in the middle of the floor.
It's going for the centre spotlight.
Yeah, I was like at like the east position, and I was basically at the west position by the end. I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah, I thought I was facing the corner. I was right in the
dead
middle,
center.
just like. Yeah, it's quite an interesting experience, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely
For an
found the thing that I found interesting is we're dancing for an hour, so that's a lot of dancing. And now it's not exactly high energy the whole time. There was definitely a point I was just like, flowing in the breeze, becoming the moon,
I am the moon.
And that's why we're blindfolded, so you don't get self-conscious about what you look like, because we're all looking like idiots. Like, you have to imagine this on the outside, we're all sitting there listening to like tribal beats and just like,
flailing around.
yeah, flailing about. So I imagine it's quite mad to look at it with all of our blindfolds on. But in the moment, I think the thing that I realized is I stopped thinking and actively dancing, but I still was.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
was no longer controlling the motion of
Yeah.
saying like, do this, do that, do that. I was just doing it.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking really in depth.
Yeah.
And so I was completely focused on the mind while my body was doing its own thing.
I mean, they do say, don't they, that the body holds a lot of the answers. We store so much trauma and stuff on a cellular level that it's quite fascinating to let the body lead and just see what happens. It's like the most bizarre thing. You can find yourself doing something really bizarre with your hand and you're like, why is my hand doing this? That's
Stop smacking
interesting.
me.
Yeah, really, really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I think the thing that was interesting, I know we both commented on this, is like there was one point that the music went from like tribal, just like beats, to like almost like Irish folk dance. And of course I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna like do like kind of
little
like my
jig.
interpretation of a jig, and I was just like, hopping around. Let's get that back.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, but I mean, that's I think the beauty of that is, I saw, not just saying yes to everything, but in the movie Yes Man, that's obviously what inspired this, if anyone's seen it, is there's a point where, he has to say yes to everything, and he goes up to a billboard, and he just starts picking off all the flyers and says, yes, 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 yes. And I got the leaflet here, the booklet of all the events in April, and I just kind of looked through and saw which ones kind of called to me. And I said, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I have in that video is, go to your local cafe. You don't have to live in Glastonbury. You don't have to live in a hippie town. Every cafe has a bulletin board, usually, with like what's going on in the town. I think even Starbucks usually has them.
Yeah.
Go up and say yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
That's how we network. That's how we make new friends. If you're especially new in a place, like go and just network.
Yeah.
Meet people. Go to that weird art show. Like whatever. Like, oh yeah, someone's gonna like spill coffee beans on themselves for half an hour. Why not? Let's do it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been really, it's quite a good melting pot, isn't it, for exploring different things and different pantheons here as well, which is even more interesting. Yeah.
How long have you lived here?
I've lived here for 4-ish years now. Yeah, I moved during lockdown, actually.
Oh, perfect time.
Right when they were like, don't leave your house. I was like,
Fine, I'm going
we're going
to
to
the
move
Shire.
house. Yeah, we had a whole exodus of about 8 of us living in sort of over 2 different houses. And we all decided to move from Brighton by the sea. And we thought we'd come here in case stuff got a bit New World Order. There's a little bit of a threat of that on the horizon
Get
in
away
the
from London.
cities. Yeah, it was like, time to return to the countryside. And
I mean, we see that even in the United States. Like a lot of people left, like California.
right.
A lot of people left New York City after COVID because they just saw how crazy it got there during COVID
Yeah.
that they decided that they're like, I'm getting out of here. And a lot of them started moving to places like Kentucky.
Yeah.
Because Kentucky is very cheap and lots of nature. And then they're like, wow, I can buy a mansion for the cost of an apartment in New York. And they're like, oh, this is so good.
Exactly. It's funny because it's sort of almost flipped again now, because now everyone is moving to the countryside. The cost of living's gone up loads in the countryside, but there was a little sweet spot in the middle where things were cheap still, and you could just move. And we had a 5-bedroom house for something like £900. It was crazy.
Yeah. So with your time here in Glastonbury, like, do you leave very often? Do you feel you stay here for the most part?
I actually find myself staying here.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first came here, I did a covenant with the land, quite sort of subconsciously, not really knowing what I was doing, but in hindsight, I realized like it was, I was doing a covenant with the land where I feel very loyal to being of service here. And so, yeah, I do. I find myself thinking, where shall I go this year? Shall I travel somewhere? Shall I do something? And when it gets to summer, I always just want to stay here. It's like, it's so nice here. Why would I leave?
I bet the summers here are really nice.
Oh, it's beautiful, and the meadows are, full of like buttercups and stuff. And I just find it such a joy. And it's quite a nice place to stay in the winter because everyone kind of hibernates and it gets quite snug, and everyone really goes into their cave as well. So I don't leave Glastonbury very often.
But when you do, even if you go to like Wells or Street, do you feel like there's a vibration here?
Yeah.
Because I noticed when I went to Wells, as soon as I went there was like a quietness in my mind.
Yeah.
Where I was like, whoa, what is this? And then the moment I slid back into Glastonbury, it was like that vibration, that frequency.
Yeah.
Like a very gentle hum. It's not negative, it's not positive, it's just there.
It's like a charge.
Yeah. Like there is
Yeah.
something to this place. Like
Absolutely.
I think people that follow my content know that I'm not actually much of a star child, hippy-dippy kind of person. Like I love
Yeah.
nature. I'm a very grounded pagan.
Yeah.
Like nature is kind of my home. It's where I get my spiritual energy from. But when it comes to like, let's do a astral projection slide meditation, I'm like, what? Like that's just not my thing. Which is why I think it was good for me to come to Glastonbury and learn from people that do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there is something here, and
Yeah.
I'm telling to the audience. I know I talked to friends back in the States, and they're like, "How's that hippie town?" And there's kind of this. There is like a negative presence to this idea of the hippie towns because a lot of places have them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's just where people go to smoke weed, but there is something here.
Yeah,
There
and
really is.
It's more on the land than on the high street as well. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've noticed that. The further you get into the countryside surrounding Glastonbury, or sort of on the outskirts of Glastonbury, there's a real charge of the land. And like the old myth of behind Glastonbury is that it does have this magnetic pull, and that people do find it quite hard to leave. They go away. I mean, I'm half expecting you to move in. You're pretending to go, and then it'll be like, yeah, see you in a month. You'll be back. Yeah, it's one of those places. People sort of say they're coming for the weekend, and then they don't end up going. It's just.
I mean, half the stories I hear here is someone's like, yeah, I came here in a camper van, and then I never left.
Yeah. It's a very mystical place.
Now, I
It's
will
very
say
cool.
that's where I do have a critique of Glastonbury. And I
Yeah.
say this with love, because I do love this place. And I love the people I've met here. I love all the experiences. But I do feel that that vortex, that magnetic pull, can become detrimental. Because I think some people aren't allowed to leave, or they don't allow
They're not
themselves
allowed to leave.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I
can
think
never
people kind of
leave.
get stuck into the lifestyle here.
Yeah.
And then they don't leave. You know, like they come here to heal, and then they don't go back out.
Do you know what? That's so true. Because it's important to keep challenging yourself
Yeah.
through life, right? It shouldn't just be a constant healing journey. It should be heal for a bit and then put it into practice.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of a culture here of staying in a state of healing and self-care.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so lovely, but it can be.
You just keep going to
it
the
can be
retreat,
detrimental.
meditation, and it's like, okay, why? And I think that's a big question. Like, you know, I've asked some people that question, like, why are you doing all these retreats?
Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't actually know the answer. Like, I don't know. It's like, you
Just
know,
love cacao. I can't stop drinking cacao.
yeah, and I mean that's fine. No, if you're honest with yourself, like, no, I just really love trance dancing. Like, I just love it.
Yeah.
And I do it every Thursday because I just love it. But I find that most people here, like, you know, they do forget their original purpose for coming here.
Yeah.
And because they do love it, and they fall in love with it. And there's no problem with loving a city. But I think the true magic of Glastonbury is kind of like the experience I've had, is come here with a problem, heal from that problem, and then go back out into the world and share what you've learned.
Oh, so what did you feel like your mission was when you first came here that you were healing from? That's interesting.
Oh, now we're getting personal.
Yeah, let's go deep.
Yeah. Well, this is good because I've met a few people along this lines as well. After doing ayahuasca in January, you know, as many people doing ayahuasca, you realize that it doesn't just end after you do ayahuasca.
Oh, it's the beginning.
Yeah, it's the beginning. And so,
Yeah.
like, February was a lot of heavy work. And, like, I was really down on myself in February. And I went to Scotland after that. Like, I literally booked a flight to Scotland because I just was so down in the dumps. I was like, I have to go to the place I love. So I went to Scotland, began that healing process there. And then I felt this call to go to Glastonbury and continue that healing process, mostly of the heart,
Yeah.
of healing the heart. And I meet a lot of people here because, like, the story is it's the heart chakra of the world. And I find a lot of people are pulled here because of that.
Yeah. They've swapped. It's only fair.
They're keeping each other warm. So,
Yeah.
why are you here?
What brought me here originally?
Yeah. Why do you do these things?
Wow. Why do I do these things?
Why do you
these
live?
things, Huey? That's such a harsh question.
Why
Well,
are you even a person?
what's the point of you even? Well, I originally came to Glastonbury to do my shamanic training, which was up on Paddington Farm, and I'd never been before. And I did this. I took it quite seriously. I did a. I mean, I don't do things by halves, and I got that nickname on the actual retreat that I was working on, where I was training, which is not by halves. They would call me
Oh, yeah.
instead of QB, not by halves, because I did a 12-hour night hike by myself from Trowbridge into Glastonbury along the ley lines, barefoot. I'd done a little bit of walking over the summer. I thought, you know, if there's one way to visit Glastonbury for the first time, it's got to be with a bit of drama.
Yeah, a walking pilgrimage.
Bit of drama,
Was there mist in the weather as
yes.
well? Like, you're coming on a misty night.
Oh, it was beautiful. And it's, you know, 12 hours of walking is a lot anyway. You kind of go into a lot of trance-like states and you go a bit mad and start telling jokes to yourself in the middle of the night. Is it at 3 a.m.? I was obsessed with the idea. I was like, shit, I'm going to get abducted by aliens. I'm out on my own in the countryside. So, you know, I had some really lovely moments with cows in fields, you know, singing to them on the way here. And it was just beautiful, very starry. Arrived in Glastonbury. I was hoping to make it up the Tor for sunrise and passed out on the roadside. But I did make it to the training, and so that was my first initial introduction to Glastonbury. That was my reason for coming here, was to deepen my work, my shamanic work that I do with people and the therapies that I offer people. Up until then, I mean, I'm a Reiki teacher and I was trained in that and doing that work, and I was doing art therapy with people and one-to-one therapy. But I knew that was meant to be going a little bit deeper into esoteric, so that was my introduction. And then as soon as I came back home, I was like, I know I need to go back. It was just a calling.
Oh, so you weren't actually decided to move there at that point?
No,
Move
no,
here,
I
yeah.
didn't even cross my mind, and within a year I'd moved back. And yeah, it's just a really photo moment, Kodak dog
They're
moment.
just like, they're just so like picturesque right now.
Oh, aren't they just?
They're like silhouettes of each other.
But in truth, what I didn't expect.
Your face in this photo is so bad. I'll show you
Oh,
later.
don't. Oh no. Terrible photos, selfies. But yeah, in truth, what Avalon has presented to me, it wasn't my intention at all. I didn't, you kind of come into a place somewhat arrogantly sometimes thinking, my healing work's done. And then it brings it all up. That's a classic of the Glastonbury legend, that you think your healing work's done, you move here and it brings up all your shadow work for investigation and self-exploration. And yeah, I've really deepened my connection with the feminine here. Before this, I was a little bit of a tomboy, and I was a little bit like clumsy about wearing dresses and things, and I had to do a lot of work on the inner feminine, and being here really sort of healed that wound. And
It's the goddess town.
Yeah, it is the goddess town, and it's I feel like I've got
To my male followers, there are 5 to 1 women to men ratio in this town.
It's true.
I'm just saying.
Perfect for any single man that wants to find a goddess.
Come to Glastonbury.
Totally true. Yeah, the goddess movement is a little
Don't
bit.
even have to bathe.
So we're going to be inundated with single men next month.
Smelly single man.
Where are the goddesses?
The goddess temple.
Oh gosh, no. It's actually, there is a little bit. We've noticed that on the in Avalon recently, that there is a slight imbalance towards the goddess. That it actually needs to be a more kind of where's the god as well as the goddess. And I'd like to see more of that here. That there's that being brought into balance.
Well,
the
in general,
masculine and the feminine.
I don't know if we talked about this now. We're going to run into that problem here.
Yeah.
Like, did we talk about this? Well, we're going to talk about it again. Spirituality in general seems to be much more feminine-led.
Yeah.
Outside of like the heathen world, like the Norse pagan heathen world, most spirituality is dominated by women.
What do you make of that as a man?
I think a lot of neo-paganism and modern spirituality is very feminine focused.
Yeah.
And doesn't attract men. I think a lot of the rituals, the ceremonies just don't interest men. And the magic, and this could be the fact that we just don't have a lot of what masculine ceremonies would have been in the ancient past. There hasn't been as much work on reviving those masculine ceremonies. And
What would a masculine ceremony look like?
well, as far as like connecting to like male aspects, like the wild, the hunt, the warrior aspect is probably what most people know about still. As a lot of people will talk about the warrior aspect. But we're not, there's a benefit to that, but not everyone is warriors. I'm not a warrior, I'm not going to war. And so looking at, the aspects of like the lord, the farmer, or the landowner, whatever you want to say, the magician, those Carl Jung archetypes and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I guess it's just, that to be direct, it's all like love and light crystal shit.
A good summary.
Like, I'm just going to be direct about it. Like, to me, most men who get into, who might be interested in spirituality, they see crystals, they see sunshine and love and light and flowers and all this stuff, and they're like,
Yeah, it's a little bit too floral.
And I think
for
that's
you,
why
right?
they end up in Norse paganism. They end up in heathenry because there is a much more masculine element to the stories, to the
Yeah.
art, to the culture.
Yeah.
Of the Viking culture and stuff like that. So they get into that.
Yeah.
And I find it to be very inaccessible a lot of the times to men to enter these modern spiritual circles.
I can imagine that actually. And there's also the aspect of men having to sort of unshut themselves down emotionally. Like it's been like, a long period of time in history where men haven't really been allowed to talk about their emotions. And that's only really changing now, like in this day and age of like psychotherapy where, it's normal to talk about your feelings now. It's been normalized for both men and women, and as it should be. And with that, I suppose that's going to bring more men to spirituality, perhaps.
Yeah, I think also thinking like the men's circles I've been a part of here.
Yeah.
A lot of it is talking about, masculine issues, such as like the prostate,
Right.
talking about these things that, may, young men struggle with.
Yeah.
And like we think about, the prostate, something that men don't have to think about until their 40s or 50s. But
Yeah.
young men suffer with, urinary issues all the time.
Wow,
But we cover it
okay.
up because it's like, oh, that's not something that should affect me until I'm 50 or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Or you don't talk about it because, you have to be the tough guy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of guys don't talk about like physical ailments
Yeah.
because they have to be tough. And this idea of toughness, isn't always like, I think it's, toughness can be doing something, even if it is hard, even if it is painful, like you push through, like that's okay. You can still do that, but also admit that you have pain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about finding that balance, isn't it? Really, yeah. It's been really interesting. So I mean, like, there's a lot of men's circles in Glastonbury.
Yeah.
Do you find that? 'Cause they're probably quite different from the Nordic traditions and the kind of northern stuff.
The Nordic traditions, like the Norse stuff, isn't really here much.
Yeah.
There's very few people here who follow the Norse path.
Yeah.
Which has been interesting for me because I've just been kind of the observer. You know, I don't really look like a Viking dude at all, so I just
Yeah.
kind of blend in and just kind of, and that's a big thing I'm talking about in an upcoming video as well. Is you know, to my Norse pagan audience, you know, for me, I kind of accept this Odinic role, where Odin was this wanderer and learned from everywhere and learned from
Yeah.
every source he could, and that's kind of how I take this role. Is like I don't necessarily fall in line with some of the stuff that is practiced here, but it's been amazing to observe and learn from. Like even like the kirtan, like, you know, listening to Hindu Hare Krishna singing.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any connection to any Hindu belief. Like I really don't feel anything from it. But being there and
Yeah.
hearing the music and feeling the energy of everyone, that's something I can still feel
Yeah,
and
yeah,
appreciate and be a
exactly.
part of without necessarily being, you know, sitting there, Hare Krishna. You know?
Having a full-on conversion.
Yeah. And I
Coming out
think-
as a Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
That'd be a plot twist for all the viewers, wouldn't it? He went to Glastonbury, turned Hare Krishna.
What do they say? Haji or whatever.
Jay.
Jay.
Yeah. Oh, it's always such beautiful vibes.
Yeah.
It's good to explore other pantheons. I mean,
Yeah.
just as an interesting point, like you said, the feeling of it, of that devotion to these old gods that were there, that, you know, obviously were on the, you know, that people always had the devotion to from the beginning of time. And so I love that. They've really got sound covered, coming together and
Yeah.
chanting they're very good at that.
Yeah, and I know, and this is something that I would struggle with because it's something I struggled with at the kirtan, is growing up in a Protestant church, is like the church hymns, having the book in front of you and just singing the church hymn was a very
Yeah.
big part of my childhood. And maybe that you could call that trauma, but, you know, going to the kirtan and having a little book in front of me with all these different like verses, I'm like, ah!
Yeah, little icky moment.
Yeah. It took me about 20 minutes to adjust and be like, this is okay. I had some resistance, like, you know,
Yeah.
at first, like, it kind
Yeah.
of like felt hot, like the paper was like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder how many kids were traumatized from church.
I know a lot. That's in the States when we talk about singing at our rituals and stuff like that. Still to this day, people talk about not wanting to do it, and I think it is because of this trauma with the church.
Yeah.
But-
It's interesting that we're having to really revive that. Like, we were talking about it, there's actually a bit of a problem with it, I think, in England, where we don't really know our you know, indigenous songs here. We don't really have our chants in the same way. And we often find, you know, you go to rainbow gatherings here and everyone's singing Native American songs. And, you know, whereas that's fine and it's beautiful, it's not, you know, of the land that you're from. And I think there needs to be a bit of a revival there, whether that's channeling those songs back through the ancestors, like doing rituals and trying to kind of maybe use kind of Proto-Celtic. I know Caroline Hillier's done some brilliant work creating a Proto-Celtic kind of format, different words that you can chant and sing.
Yeah.
And that's something we're definitely hoping to bring back to life a little bit in this town.
Yeah, and like even to go back to the kirtan, like one of the things I was thinking is like the songs, when you actually look at the translations, are very simple. It's
Yeah.
just like Hail Krishna, you know,
Yeah.
thank you for the sun, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's very basic language.
A lot of mother worship as well.
Yeah, a lot of mother worship.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Father. Thank you, Mother. You know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But when you sing it in, I mean, I'm assuming the language is like Hindi, right?
Yeah.
That's the language it would be.
think
Yeah. That sounds right. But anyways, the language is it's sung. It sounds very beautiful, but it's such a basic language. And so, you know, taking something like the Celtic and translating stuff into Gaelic or Cornish, you know, we're close to Cornwall here. Or for the Norse audience, you know, that's what I was thinking. It's like, oh, take these songs, take a rune like Fehu, and bring in like Freya, Freyr, Idun, and then bring some, you know, other Old Norse words in there, and create a very similar song and experience.
Right.
But it sounds more Norse.
Yeah.
And I don't think that crosses that line of cultural appropriation. I think that's
Yeah.
more of cultural learning.
Cultural learning.
Yeah, like I'm learning from your culture. Thank you so much. Like now I can better my culture because of it, or what the culture I'm creating.
Yeah, or even trace the steps back of your culture, of what
Yeah.
it might have looked like.
Yeah, because again, it's very simple.
Yeah.
You know, a song saying "Hail Freya," Hail Freyr, thank you Lord, thank you Lady."
Yeah.
You know, in Old Norse is a very simple song, but it would sound very beautiful.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me wonder what it would feel like to do that at, you know, these retreats and the kind of rituals with the Nordic things and the Celtic things coming back in.
Yeah.
Whether it add a whole nother depth and layer to it. I mean, we certainly experience it with sound weaving and chanting the Arwen. That's something we talked about in the last podcast. But to bring in like the old words that we do know, the old Gaelic words, Proto-Celtic words, it'd
Yeah.
be incredible.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and the runes, chanting of the runes, like you were saying.
Yeah, and I think the few Norse, like the Norse guy I've talked to here, I'm sure he doesn't mind if I mention him. His name's Tim. One of the things he was really big on was talking about the runes and the
Yeah.
use of the runes within ceremony and ritual and stuff like that. And we mostly know runes these days as a divination practice, and
Yeah.
that's just very far from what they probably would have been used in the past. Divination was
Yeah.
important to the Germanic tribes and to the Norse, but I doubt we don't have any evidence to suggest they were using the runes for this. And so they were probably singing them. They were
Yeah.
using them as a chanting method because most people were illiterate anyways. And so there had to have been some kind of vocalized element to the runes. And we don't know what that is. And so we can either sit here and be like, well, that means we shouldn't do it. Or we learn from someone else and say, okay, the Hare Krishnas over here are singing this way.
Yeah.
Let's practice that with the runes. Let's see what happens there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the cultural and spiritual evolution that we're having now.
Yeah.
And revival is learning from the other cultures and seeing what that looks like into what we're interested in.
Yeah, yeah. You could even like dig around in really old folk songs as well to get a clue of like how the sounds and the melodies would go.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to sort of piece together and jigsaw together what might have been what our ancestors were doing on these lands with song.
You're above my college degree at that point then. I'm like, let's see what meter. I know one of my friends is really big into like the skaldic meter. How were the skalds singing? And I'm like, dude, oh wow.
Oh.
Yeah. But he's
interesting.
there is one thing he dug up is the fact that like I'm pretty sure they were talking about how someone like there was like a battle of wizards and they would use like skaldic verse to like sing each other to death.
I like that. Sing you to death.
Yeah, and there's a story in the Finnish. I've read it for myself. It's talking. I think it's Vainamoinen. It could be someone else, but he's going in and he has to kill this group of wizards. He has to go in and warlocks, I think is what they call them. And he goes in, and it literally says, with the power of his voice, he obliterated them.
Whoa. Good Lord, that sounds intense.
Yeah, it's got the thum.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about frequency in that as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like the power of creation and how everything's vibrating at a frequency and how that's connected to sound healing and then songs and chanting.
Yeah.
The whole scale of it's very mysterious. Yeah.
Yeah. There's all right. So, what do you love most about Glastonbury?
Oh, what I love most. I think the community, the sense of togetherness here is like, it's something I've not really experienced too much anywhere else I've been to.
Yeah.
So you sometimes get it in traveller communities, like I used to live on a boat and the boating community was very close-knit. On the canals,
Okay,
yeah. And that was a very close-knit community, but I've never lived in a town where that's, you know, so far spread here and everyone really looks out for each other. It's very sweet.
Yeah.
And I guess that I mean, you can either love it or hate it, but the exaggeration of the dark and the light is very strong in Glastonbury. People move here thinking it's all love and light, and they often get quite a shock quite quickly because it's where the two worlds meet. Shadow and light dance with each other here quite predominantly in an exaggerated way. And either you kind of delight in that because it brings up some really juicy kind of inner work to do,
Yeah.
or it will completely obliterate you and destroy you. You do see people
Yeah,
having
well, and I
both
think that's where I
experiences.
do get critical of the love and light facade, is because
Yeah.
like the work here is still a balance. Like you have
Yeah.
the positive, uplifting stuff, and then you do have the lower realm work,
Yeah,
and
it's
it does seem like the surface of what Glastonbury looked like is still more the love and light.
Yeah.
And I think if I had any critiques, I'd like to see more of the like real work, like the really
Yeah,
deep
yeah,
shit,
yeah.
come to the surface here a little bit more. And maybe that's what comes from the masculine.
Yeah.
As that's what the masculine energy can bring, and that's why it's out of balance. Is because the feminine brings all this positive stuff. You
All the
need that,
light.
all the light, but you need that low-rooted stuff as well.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, winter is very underworldy here.
Yeah,
that's quite it's it's very sort of an isolated place then. You still have the community connection but no tourism, so it's very people tend to go more inward then, I think, and the real shadow work begins through the winter months. Yeah, it's very aligned with the seasons here. It's a very mystical place like that.
Yeah, and so what would be the one thing you would change about Glastonbury?
Oh, what would I change about it?
Can't be perfect. Nothing's perfect. More KFC.
More KFC! Put a KFC on the high street. That would be awful. Can you imagine? You know, one thing that me and a few friends have talked about, actually, like if anyone's got a lot of money and would like to do this in Glastonbury, I think you should. Gap in the Market. There's no real kind of like sense of like there's the White Springs where you can bathe, but we'd like to see a spa here.
Are you saying people stink?
No, but like there's because there is so much shadow work and there's a lot of heaviness and a lot of land stuff. I'd quite like to see a spa, like an old Venusian spa.
Oh, like an
temple
almost like hot
pillars,
spring
hot
sauna.
spring kind of
Sauna.
Yeah, a place for people to sort of sweat out and go into trance through
And
heat.
for the
That
various
would be
people I know
great.
who live in your vans, you can finally bathe.
And have a shower. Bless.
But that is true.
yeah.
Like a lot of people here live out of a tent, live out of a van, live in a
Yeah.
caravan. Like that's actually very common. And I know it's a question I've posed is like, that would be a really convenient thing.
Yeah.
Is with so many people living that kind of lifestyle, like she said, there's a gap in the market. Like if you're looking at a way to make money, a bathhouse.
Please put a bathhouse.
Yeah, a bathhouse would do amazing.
amazing, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, for sure.
Oh, but in seriousness, I do think, I mean, there's a lot that's great about Glastonbury in terms of looking out for each other and things like that. But I think what would be nicer to see is kind of probably less Airbnbs. That's one problem in Glastonbury.
That's a big problem at a lot of places now, especially in
Yeah.
Europe. Is
Yeah.
the Airbnb crisis? Is,
Yeah.
more than half the housing being for Airbnb rentals.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, like we have such a housing crisis here.
Yeah.
There's barely anywhere to live, and that is problematic. You know.
Yeah, it's such a small town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can see the entire town from the tour.
Yeah.
You can see how fast the town ends.
And that's the thing, I suppose it becomes a bit of a tourist trap, and with that there's a high demand for Airbnbs, and so it thrives here, but
Yeah.
it's not good for the locals. So that's probably the one main thing I would change
Yeah.
in all seriousness. Probably before the spa, that would be
And the
the order
KFC.
of priority.
We should go KFC together. We you keep talking about it.
Oh no, I've hit that habit on the head this month. I've been doing the old green box.
The green. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good. I thought your skin looked a little clearer. You know. if I'm
Yeah,
not doing
yeah,
the
yeah. I went through a bit of a KFC period. It was an unexpected plot twist in my life. Got you through the winter.
Yeah.
No, KFC is not for
That's how I get
everybody.
with pizza. Pizza's my weakness.
Yeah.
As I love it so much.
Yeah.
That like I just gorge myself on it when I get it. And I just feel awful afterwards. Yeah, like last time I went to the States, like my dad American pizzas are so much like worse.
Yeah.
As far as like cheesiness, pepperoni, like everything on it. My dad got like a big pizza last time I was there, and I think I ate like 10 pieces.
Oh, that's impressive. Yeah,
it was
goodness.
it was madness, and like for 6 days I felt awful, just like ugh. But then I kid you not, midway through I went and got leftover pizza and ate it. Even though I know what caused my pain.
Sometimes I think you've got to go into these habits and really go into them to come out of them and completely put yourself off them.
Yeah, I've never done it again.
It's, yeah, it is good. Really nice to eat healthy and to take care of yourself, isn't it?
Well, I have one.
And gorge occasionally.
Yes. Well, I have one practical critique that I found here. Is Glastonbury needs a shop that's more of like the everyday conveniences.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like there was a day I decided to do the no phones. I've done no phones quite a bit here, but turns out when you don't have your phone, you don't have a clock on you. And I was like, oh, I need to buy a watch. And there's absolutely nowhere in this town to just buy a watch.
You got to listen for the church bells, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple
the good old
clocks around
days.
town, or like men's clothing. Like there's like hardly any places to buy men's clothing specifically, like masculine clothing.
Unless you want a poncho.
Yeah, you can buy ponchos. Yeah, but if you just need to go get like a T-shirt,
Yeah.
like, there's really not a place to go buy one. You have to go to the next towns over. And I think a convenience shop like that would do well because you have your Morrisons, you have your groceries.
Yeah.
But as far as like the other side of grocery, like the trash can, like where do you buy a trash can here?
What's Well, proper job, I can tell you that. Yeah, no, I know what you mean, actually. There's a lot of crystal shops, and they're great, but you can't eat them,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and yeah, there are a few food options here
Yeah.
that are like healthy, honestly, which is
Yeah,
surprising.
yeah, food is here. It's good. There's some really, really lovely places to eat.
Yeah.
Did you go to the Rainbow Cafe?
Which one's the Rainbow Cafe?
Halfway on the high street? Oh, maybe you didn't.
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, we should do
I-
your leaving lunch there. That would be my best recommendation. for
Okay, I
Glastonbury.
got you, yeah, yeah.
Places to eat. The Rainbow Cafe is beautiful. It's
Yeah.
really good, healthy food.
Okay, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I think this a practical shop. There needs to be
Yeah.
at least one practical shop in
Yeah,
this town.
somewhere where
'Cause-
you can buy toilet roll and.
yeah, like the Morrisons is fine enough, but yeah, I just found that when I'm talking to people, they're all like, yeah, we do seem to like miss some conveniences. Like there's some very normal everyday items that they like have to go to another town for.
Yeah.
And it feels like a town like Glastonbury could use them. And then the bathhouse is a great idea as well.
Yeah. Oh, I have a good question for you.
Okay, yeah.
So, how has being here, has it brought any new elements to your kind of original, like Nordic celebrations and beliefs and rituals? Has it added anything to that or deepened your connection to it?
I think my biggest takeaways, personally, I had a pretty deep connection to Jorth, the mother goddess deity in the Scandinavian, which is the mother of Thor.
Yours.
Yeah, so like it was when I was in the White Springs and I did the rapé ceremony and I had the mysterious woman show up. And like the ceremony I had there, like this, like I felt like the earth growing around me.
Oh, wow.
And so I just really felt that connection to the earth goddess. And
Yeah.
to me, that just was what I personify is Jorth.
Yeah.
So that was a really personal and deep connection.
Beautiful,
Because,
yeah.
yeah, it was really beautiful. And obviously, like a lot of the statues here are like the mother goddess and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's just very, very universal. You have Gaia, you know, I don't know other names, but a lot of different religions have the earth
Yeah.
goddess.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to kind of make that official connection with the earth goddess.
Yeah. There's a heavy influence on that here,
Yeah.
not it? Yeah, it's magical for that. Oh, that's incredible. So
Yeah.
that's kind of come through more for you than, say, like Odin or anyone whilst you've been here?
Yeah, I mean, I experience Odin in a very unique way, I think. I don't hear many people talk about this, but for me, the way I experience Odin is when I speak to someone and I learn something. And so if I speak to someone I've never met before, like there's so many random encounters here where I don't see the person again.
Yeah.
And I just, like, I barely don't know their name, and I have this really deep conversation with them. I learn something, they learn something from me, and in that moment, I'm thankful for Odin. And so this town is great for that because you meet people all the time.
Yeah.
And so, like, that, again, following that Odinic wandering aspect,
Yeah.
still very nice here.
Like really embodying his traits and
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah, especially, you know, with a wide brim hat, you know, people see me around town, they're like, oh, hey, there's Jacob, you know? Like, I mean, it's very easy to get spotted here.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel him in that. But yeah, as far as the Earth Goddess, definitely, that was my first true connection with her here. And I think the lands of Avalon are a great place for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's known for it. Really is.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, then I really like the men's circle. I think it was really good. And something I mentioned to you earlier is like, you know, we recorded a bit last night. Like one of the guys wanted to record, and we just ended up talking about like pornography and how it
Yeah.
affects men. And it's like I never realized that, you know, I had so much to say about it because I think that's another. You know, men are just so repressed on what they're allowed to say. I think spiritually, is we just don't feel like we can talk about it. And even
Really? Isn't
talking
that
about it,
interesting?
is sitting there, you know, four men talking about pornography.
Yeah.
It felt very awkward because it felt like, oh, we should be able to talk about these things. And it's like, no, this is something that every man has to deal with. And women have to deal with.
Yeah.
But it really,
yeah.
really affects young men is this addiction to pornography. And it's like,
Totally. It's a real problem, isn't it?
yeah. And it affects our relationship with women, and sometimes in the negative way, because it can make men seem very, look at all women in a very sexual way.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
not healthy. You can't look at every woman as a sexual object. And that's one of the things that porn teaches young men.
The objectification of
Yeah,
it
the
all.
first thing you think of every woman is what do they look like naked.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and this is imprinted in us because of our easy access to porn.
Yeah, it really exploits those kind of animal instincts in a really negative way,
Yeah.
rather than kind of an honouring of one another. And it's interesting that you said that you feel like men don't feel like they can talk about it, because I think a lot of women, I mean, I can only really speak for myself, I think maybe we feel like that as well, like it's something that's just part of the culture that we
Yeah.
almost have to put up with, and it's like, actually, maybe both genders
Yeah.
are feeling the same about this, and
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it is time to kind of revolt it, and
Or
yeah.
at least acknowledge it. And
Yeah.
that was one of the big things is, you know, we had a nice, like, you know, multiple direction conversation.
Yeah.
One of the things that was big is just like, let's just acknowledge it. Let's
Yeah.
look at it. Like, there it is. Because we don't even do that.
Yeah.
It just happens everywhere. It's always happening.
Yeah.
But why don't we look at it and say, is this good? Is it
Yeah,
bad? Is it
yeah.
healthy? And how do we, let's talk about it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a big addiction within the female community with porn as well that kind of isn't, that
I've
gets
noticed it-
completely missed.
Yeah, I've
more-
noticed it a little bit more recently,
Yeah,
as I've heard more women talking about this more,
yeah.
like almost not getting satisfied
Right.
with real sex anymore, because, and this happens to men as well,
Yeah.
because they get so addicted to it.
Yeah.
But again, the reason I feel like bringing it up in this podcast is because that's another thing I learned, is just to be a little bit more open with these conversations, especially with men. And I think I even mentioned this to you when we were on the way to the shamanic trance dance, is it seems like a lot of male relationships stay surface level. And that's what
Yeah.
can make them fun, is that they're surface level. You got your bros,
Yeah.
you play video games, you watch TV, you talk about, absolute bullshit, but you never actually get into the real stuff.
Yeah, there's no going deep.
Yeah, and I think having the men's circle where you can invite men close friends or men you don't know, and just talk
Yeah.
and be like, no, like how are you?
Like, how are you actually,
Yeah,
man?
not surface level anymore. Like, what's going on in there? And I think a
Yeah.
lot of men need that.
Totally, and probably wouldn't even know where to begin or how to start that.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see men's circles popping up
Yeah.
where that space is held so safely, where men can start talking about these things, and it's really beautiful that I guess that's what tribe would have been like. Men would have been discussing things before, like on
Yeah.
a perhaps much deeper level, and it's all been a bit shut down. It's a bit tragic, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that is really, I mean, that brings us back round to the idea of the Oak King. Like, how would the Oak King behave? Like, how would he honor the feminine
Yeah.
and the sacred? And likewise, how would the Hawthorn, the May Queen, honor her king?
Yep.
It's bringing the sacred back into sex
Yeah.
and taking the objectivity out of it again.
Yeah, something we all think about. We can't deny it.
Yeah, it's part of us.
Yeah.
It's very much a part of being alive, but it's how it's exploited and in which direction it's exploited. Because imagine if it was just, I mean, you see a lot more focus on the kind of tantra within sex now. That's becoming
Yeah.
much more popular. But even that, that's not so much of a monogamous thing. That seems to be sort of within the polyamorous communities. What I would love to see is like how, talks about how to really honor the masculine and feminine within monogamy. That would be a beautiful,
Sounds like a good book. You should start writing it.
yeah, really beautiful thing to reignite, wouldn't it? Oh,
That's what you get for eating grass.
that's what you get for eating grass.
Yeah, there's a bit of a grass throw up right here.
Oh
Actually.
no!
I was like, ooh, what's that?
When did that happen? Totally threw up some grass.
But yeah, I imagine we've rambled on for about near an hour here. So
Yeah, we
can start-
normally do.
Yeah. So we can start wrapping up. But I do want to say my last piece of advice for my message to Glastonbury. One, I love you. Yeah. Thank you very much. I've been genuinely surprised by my 30 days here. It's about like a lifetime, honestly. And anyone in the United States, in Nebraska and Kansas, I don't care where you are, if you're struggling spiritually, if you can find a way to take a pilgrimage to Glastonbury, I think you'd be very, very benefited. I think a month is great. I think even 2 weeks would be great. And just embrace the town, really dive into it. Go to the White Springs, go to the tour, talk to people, attend different events.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing experience.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so good. I'm so glad you've had a great time here. You've totally like hit the ground running in Glastonbury.
Yeah, that's what I think you got to do here. Just embrace it. Embrace the
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
And don't come in here with that mindset of like, I'm a Norse pagan. I can only do Norse pagan stuff. Well, bad news. You have one store, and as far as I know, one dude.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you can come to this experience as a Norse pagan, as a Celtic pagan, as whatever, as a Christian. I mean, there's plenty of Christian. I met plenty of Christian people here that they come here for the
I mean,
religious rites and stuff.
absolutely. It was traditionally like we're
We're in an abbey.
we're in an abbey. Like we can't avoid it. It was a pilgrim place.
Yeah.
Massively so, and still is. It's very much a place for pilgrimaging.
Yeah.
Pilgriming.
Pilgrimage. Yeah, so I mean, I know not everyone has that availability because of
Yeah.
kids and things like that. But if you're in a point in your life where you have a bit of freedom, fly into Bristol, take the bus down to Glastonbury to see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
shoot, I know people that come in here without a place to stay,
Yeah.
and they're just like, I just came here.
They just park up a tent.
Yeah.
And make it work.
And you find it out, and then you meet someone within the first hour, and you're like, hey, I need a place to stay, and they're like, okay, no, I know someone that has a place to stay for you. Like, where do you want? Hello.
Yeah. Such a sweet little thing. Oh, Roy. Yeah, I was going to say as well, are we doing a shameless plug of anything you got going on?
Let's do yours first. I've been shameless plugging throughout. You need to start doing that. I've dropped 2 video hints.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't even notice that, but there they go. That's
what I do.
Snuck in. What have I got coming up for the month of May? Well, I'm doing my monthly spiritual mentoring, which is based around the ancient Druidic Trioem. We're working on the oak this month, so you can start at any time. It's cyclical, so if you fancy doing that and working with me, I do the mentoring one-to-one or as a group online. And then I'm also doing lots of wand ceremonies on the land. If you do want to visit Glastonbury and you fancy crafting a wand with me, I do a folklore tour of the whole place, which is quite a sweet little day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You come to the Abbey as well.
Come to the Abbey and Chalice Wells and all of the beautiful
Nice.
sites here, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's again the beauty of here is like, it's so small. It's so small here.
Do it in a day.
But yeah, there's such depth though at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, sitting here, like again, seeing the White Springs, seeing Chalice Wells, and just, it's like, oh, you've seen them all once.
Yeah.
Have you seen them again? What about a third time?
Exactly. What about you? What have you got coming up in May?
May is my mad month. So this is my mad dash across Ireland. I'm
Yeah.
very grateful to be doing it, but it is going to be psychopathic. Essentially, every single day I'm driving across Ireland, I'm filming a different video. That's actually the way I'm filming it.
Yeah.
Is so day 1, okay, cool, I'm picking up Kevin. Let's talk about Irish history. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Cool. Day 2, we're taking.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah, why are we here? Day 2,
Tell me, Kevin.
I'm doing a thing. I have an Irish language teacher teaching Kevin and I like different language, the Irish language and how to pronounce
That's so
things.
important, yes.
And then day 3, we're talking about like the cult of the skull, like the head cult that was there.
Yeah.
So every day it's a different topic and a different road trip.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an amazing experience. But I'm recording the whole damn thing, and I don't have an editor, so that's my life. And so my whole life
my
is going to be
God.
Ireland for the
Oh.
next month and a half, 2 months. But I do have a couple shamanic stuff coming up. I have the Scottish workshop, the 24th to the 26th. It still has, I think, 4 spots open.
Yeah.
If anyone's interested. And then I have in the States, I do have my own website launching soon. And in July 5th to the 7th, I'm doing a shamanic retreat as well.
Oh, nice. Very busy month of May.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why Glastonbury's nice. Been taking it nice and slow. I do like an hour of work a day. I'm like, ugh.
Time for another nap in the woods.
Yeah, ooh, another bathe in the White Springs. Yeah, but I'm going to pay for it in May. But I do my last piece of advice for the people of Glastonbury.
All right.
Because I've been saying this to a few people, and it seems to be resonating. And again, this is my critique of it. Seems like people get stuck. Is see Glastonbury if you come to live here as a cocoon.
It's totally a womb, isn't it?
Yeah, or a womb. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
eventually you are rebirthed, and that
Yeah.
should be the goal.
Yeah.
The goal should be to become the butterfly.
Exactly.
To be rebirthed. And once you've reached that step, then you can ask yourself the question of, do I need to stay here?
Yeah.
Stay here with the land and say, do I need to stay here, land?
Yeah.
Or do I need to go? And if the land tells you to go, it's time.
Yeah.
And I find,
yeah.
I think a lot of people need to have that conversation with themselves. And I mean that with so much love. But eventually, you have to go out of the cocoon.
And be a beautiful butterfly.
I want you to be a beautiful butterfly. That's all I could want for the amazing people I've met here. But please be that beautiful butterfly. And you don't stay in that cocoon forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but otherwise, I love this place.
Oh, well, we hope to have you back. It's been lovely having you here.
Yeah. Well, I'll get a little bit when we do our Zoom calls from the distance.
Yeah, I'll have to make
siphon
sure I'm
a
in the
little
woods or something so you can see a little bit of the land
bit.
still.
Shitty reception here. Yeah.
It's not happening, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually quite happy the reception here is kind of eh. Yeah.
Yeah, it does cut you off in a good way.
Yeah, it's like there's definitely blind spots in the town. and
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine.
The ley lines.
All right, well, thank you all so very much for joining us.
thank
Make
you.
sure you check out our retreats that we have coming up and check our past 2 episodes, and we have a 4th one coming up in June. So
Yep. Hopefully see you next month.
see you next month.
Bye.
And happy Beltane!
Happy Beltane.